Good afternoon. It's such a pleasure to be here. This is my first Ivy Family Office Network event. So Marty, thank you so much for inviting me. I was actually introduced to Ivy from the Nexus folks. So April, Gavin, thank you for considering me. So today I'm going to be talking about how to use big data to source proprietary deal flow. So it's really tapping into alternative data, so non-traditional data sources to source proprietary deal flow. So a little bit about my background. I am, as Marty said, I'm co-founder and president of a company called Crowdpoint Technologies. We build AI infrastructure for data optimization as well as running real-time analytics. But by way of background, I spent a lot of time in mergers acquisitions. I'm an investment banker by trade, mainly sell-side representation, some buy-side engagements. But in addition to Crowdpoint, I currently serve as an advisor to a company called Cardone Ventures. I'm their managing director of M&A. So Cardone Ventures is a organization that concentrates on business education, management consulting, as well as investments that cater to the relatively boring industries. So they service the small and medium business owner sector. Companies in the home services space and professional services. So think HVAC, plumbing, electricians, bookkeepers, relatively boring businesses, but they're obviously staple to our economy. And my investment banking background, I was COO of a firm called Nexus Health Capital, is a healthcare-focused firm out of Dallas and Miami. But really where what I'm going to dive into today, leveraging big data to find deal flow, this came from my experience with Cardone Ventures, which is really what they asked me to do is I teach M&A concepts to entrepreneurs, folks that have never really tapped into acquiring businesses to scale and to grow their value. So what again, these are folks that were completely non-sophisticated, so a lot of blue-collar businesses and folks that have not gone to business school, Wharton, HBS, you name it, right? But one of the main questions I always get is, well, how do I find great deal opportunities, right? Like, how do I find that? And more often than not, what these folks are typically inclined or have experience doing is going on a business brokerage website like BizBuySell and looking through a list of businesses for sale, and then competing in a in a relatively competitive bidding market, right? So that isn't how they're going to really find great incremental value in acquisitions, right? So I think everyone in this room knows through their experience with family offices or even institutional investing is that running any type of institution requires proprietary deal flow, right? Typically, big firms or even family offices probably have a number of analysts that they work with to source deals, or they leverage referrals, right, to find high quality deals. But how do you find that diamond in a rough? That's what we're going to dig into today. Is finding reducing your competition, finding advantageous pricing, exclusive opportunities. This is what leveraging data and technology can enable you to do. So there's a unprecedented opportunity right now in these non-sexy, boring industries, right? And it's the baby boomers, right? They're retiring at unprecedented levels, right? Almost 10,000 baby boomers retire daily, and there's a pretty significant gap in their succession planning. So vast majority of these baby boomers that own businesses do not have a succession plan. Again, imagine you're in the plumbing industry. You've been in business 40, 50 years, and you think your son or daughter is going to take over the business, but they're like, Dad, I don't want to be in the plumbing space. I want something hot, right? I want to be in the tech sector or be a social media influencer, or whatever they're doing. But these businesses, they pretty much just, a lot of these folks don't exit their businesses. They just cease to exist, right? So let's say, statistically, 1 in 12 businesses actually sells, the rest either fade away or, last until the person ceases to exist. So there's a unprecedented opportunity for strategic acquisitions in this boring space, right? So big avenue of opportunity for investors and consolidators. But how do you tap into this market, right? There's millions of baby boomers that own businesses, right? 35 million small and medium businesses in the United States alone, right? What I believe is that you can tap alternative data to find these off-market opportunities, right? So using things like intent modeling, leveraging social media sentiment, geolocation targeting, consumer behavior, right? Ownership behavior, looking at market signal and data variables like that to find that diamond in a rough, as I said earlier, right? This allows you to have enhanced due diligence, right? You really hone in and look at the data between the data, right? You read between the lines. You don't just rely on financial data. You don't just rely on your investment banking network or relationships. If you're a non-sophisticated, you're not just relying on these business brokerage websites to source deal flow, right? You're really getting into that deep level of market insight, right? All while monitoring your portfolio performance and having customized investment strategies. So why should family offices utilize propensity modeling or alternative data modeling and machine learning to source their deals? Well, this allows them to precision target their investments, right? Instead of taking a blanket approach or a shotgun approach to calling as many leads as possible, sending LinkedIn messages to business owners saying, hey, this is our thesis. We're trying to find businesses in XYZ market or this size range. You can, instead of being a shotgun, you can be a sniper, right? That's the idea here. It obviously increases your conversion rate because you're reducing your denominator, right? And then there's an obvious strategic advantage by finding high potential targets, right? So finding off-market deals, they usually yield some type of a proprietary delta that the competitive markets won't have, right? And then it allows you to make data-driven decisions. So in this use case, what my company did is we put together a tool that allows investors, consolidators, institutions to leverage big data, as well as visualize that data to really hone in and find deals. So in this use case, I had an HVAC consolidator. I had a private equity sponsored HVAC client that came in that said they were going on an acquisition spree and they wanted to find off-market deals, right? It gave me an idea that we put together over the last several months of utilizing this big data and visualizing the data geographically to really hone in and find these growth opportunities. So what we did here is we pulled in data from 60, 70 different data feeds. This is dynamic data. And we said, let's look at if I have some macro level assumptions, right? My first assumption is that it's a boring industry, right? My other assumption is that folks are falling, or owners of these businesses fall into the baby boomer category, this wealth transfer opportunity, right? So I want to tap into those markets. But I also want, let's say, I don't necessarily want to target those business owners if they're in a geography that's not growing, right? So fundamental assumptions, the business owner is in a close to retirement age. I'm looking for some type of signal. I want to know that they're close to 65 years of age. I'd love to know if they're on Medicare, if they're purchasing insurance from a private insurance or a state market, right? That usually gives some type of signal to me that they're in a less favorable financial position, right? I'm looking to see if they own a house, if they have kids, what their credit score is, what their utility spend is. I'm looking for dozens of data variables that we have from these 60, 70 databases that I have to figure out, does this person have the propensity to sell a business? Great. Let's say I have somebody that's in a rural market. Well, the rural market, maybe it doesn't have growth indicators. So I want to concentrate my efforts into targeting businesses that are in growth markets. So how do I do that? You see in this map here, these are the states that are highlighted blue. These are markets that we have found through almost 35 different metrics that indicate some type of growth. So we customize these metrics based on the industry we're targeting. So let's say in this case, I referenced an HVAC business, right? So what I want is I do want a healthy baseline of baby boomers because they generally own their homes or older homes, but I also want a good ratio of Gen X owners, right? Gen X owners, they typically have the dry powder or cash available to invest in their homes. I'm looking at data to say what is the typical household operating spend. I want to know that they're spending money on lawn care, on roofing, on pest control, things like that. Because in this HVAC industry, uh, uh, I'm looking for that signal to say that they're trying to improve their homes, right? They own their home, they're trying to improve it. I'm looking at age of the homes as well, right? I don't necessarily want to target new homes because in this industry, it doesn't make sense to target new homes. I want old homes, right? So that's some of the market analysis and some of the variables we're looking at. Again, we customize these metrics depending on which industry or which geography we're targeting, but this gives you an idea of some of the variables we're looking at to present acquisition opportunities to our clients. So what I've done here now, you see that there are some counties that are highlighted red, right? These counties indicate that homes within these growing states, these counties represent underserved markets. So here's what I mean. So in the HVAC industry, what we did is we garnered national benchmarks, right, to say typical percentage or dollar spend on HVAC is X amount, right? I want to find counties that are underserved, as well as indicate population growth, market growth, higher spend capacity. So I concentrate my efforts on these growing markets, right? It helps me hone in, especially if I have a macro thesis I'm consolidating, irrespective of geography. But what we do here, I'm going to deep dive into this, into the Charlotte neighborhood. We picked this on an arbitrary basis. It's just my developer and I understood this market pretty well. So you see there's a polygon that's highlighted a little darker red versus everything else. So that's about a 450 square mile area that we're going to concentrate on for the purpose of this, this use case. So we see here, this is, like I said, we're diving into this area. What this next slide shows you is all these little red dots, they indicate HVAC companies that are serving this area, right? So our data, we're pulling, data from a lot of sources, again, dynamic data. So this is not static, it's not decaying or age data. This is live feeds that we have. So with this, whenever in our software, if I click on a company, I'll have their revenue, I'll have the name of the company, owner info, I'll have number of employees, if they have debt, what's their risk profile for financial viability, right? But I can hone in and really see what my market looks like, right? In this 450 square mile area, we have 55 companies. These 55 companies represent about 75 million in HVAC revenue projected between now and 2028, right? And I'll go back to this area. We selected this area now based on market growth, our projections, as well as national metrics that we have. The estimated HVAC spend for this area is about 122 million. So there's about a $50 million delta there, an opportunity. So it means it's an underserved market, whether competitors from nearby come in or existing companies tap into that underserved potential, right? So as a consolidator, I can come in and say, all right, well, just based on potential HVAC spend, I could either start a company or buy a company, and I have potential growth of $50 million in this market, right? If I really hone in and optimize my operations. Now, our software goes a little deeper. You see that there's different colored blocks here. These blocks, we give customer segmentation analysis as well, right? To really break down to say, all right, if I click, for example, the blue geographies here, or the blue blocks, these are markets or neighborhood blocks that have higher spending behavior versus the green blocks, right? But we go really deep and we give a 5-6 page report on your customers in these markets. We break down demography, demographic info, education background, hobbies, interest, age level, right? What typical occupations are in these markets. So we go really deep into helping potential acquirers understand what their customer profile is. Who are they serving, right? I may, for the sake of optimization, just target the blue markets, right? Or these blue blocks because they spend more than the others, right? So that's the type of deep insight that's available when you leverage big data and alternative data sets to really hone in and refine your investment thesis. So, 60, 70 different sources, depends on the industry, but we're constantly adding more sources. Some of it's proprietary data, some of it is feeds that we API into a lot of data sets. So like I said, it is dynamic data, but the output, right? The end result is this, is a list of the company names, the address, employee count, sales data, risk profile, what's their financial viability, right? In certain instances, I may want a high risk company. Why? It's a relatively solid operation. Look, $2 million in revenue, 10 employees, so a couple $100,000 per head. If it's high risk, I could probably come in, streamline the operations. It's a distressed or stressed opportunity, and I could turn that around and create some alpha for my investment.
So are you selling the product, white labeling it, or are you
Licensing,
looking to
yeah.
raise a fund?
No, licensing, not looking to raise a
So you're
fund.
licensing the technology?
Yep.
And so, so there was actually, I mean, there's been, alternative data was a big thing before COVID.
Sure.
And there was a company, I forget their name, they raised so much money, I don't know, $50 million, right? And then they, they had problems later on, they were like, I think called something like alternative cloud or whatever. And the problem was that people weren't buying it. So I'm just wondering what's different, because they had, many alternative data sets that you couldn't find normally. And they had a tool set where you could kind of tailor your needs if you were a hedge fund or a private equity firm to what your needs were. So I'm just wondering, how do you differentiate? Or maybe is it that now's the time and the time wasn't the right time, 5 years ago? I'm just trying to understand.
So there's a concept in big data, and like great question, Marty, but there's a concept in big data that says, let the data find the data and the user find the relevance, right? So in this case, this is contextualized, right? Many times I've looked at a number of alternative data companies, they give you so many variables that it's hard to really refine your thesis. In this, for this purpose, we kept it very simple, right? Very, very simple. Our intent modeling, I'm not going incredibly deep, adding like 100 different variables or giving you customizations. This is meant to give you signal to say these are potential acquisition targets. That's it, right? Now, you may have, looking at this data, like I know the Nexus team and I were talking about potential other use cases for that. I'm not concentrated on that, right? My fundamental goal with this type of data, really, it was built as an internal tool. Right, I built an internal tool for relatively inexperienced entrepreneurs that were coming into education events that we had to say, help me find proprietary deal flow. Right, they didn't even know what proprietary deal flow meant. They just said off-market opportunities. I said, okay, hold on, let me engineer this and come back to you. And this is what we built. And we found through conversations with both inexperienced or amateur acquirers, as well as some of the more sophisticated or institutional guys, to say that this is a great place to start. Because then imagine you're running a family office, private equity fund, and going after a niche industry, right? You're agnostic on geography, you have a pretty wide thesis. This will just help you hone in on that, right?
So you're not trying to be all things to all people.
I'm not,
So,
not at all. No.
So what's the pricing on this? Is it like a SaaS model, or?
It's a SaaS model. We're working some of the details. If anyone's interested, here's a QR code. You can schedule a call with me. This was literally the first public demo I've done with this. I use this internally for some funds that I consult with to help them source deals. So this is a tried and true model. I've used this for my clients to help them
So
find
who
deals.
would be interested primarily? Private equity firms, venture capital firms, independent sponsors, business brokers?
All of the above. Yeah, all of the above. I've had conversations with all. Currently, this is being used by VC funds. It's being used by a family office, as well as a private equity firm, and the Cardone Ventures. They have a club of a small little group of 30 or 40 entrepreneurs that are acquiring businesses, and they're using this data set to find their leads.
And do you use it also to validate theory? Like, somebody says, somebody has come to you, you're a private equity firm. Somebody said, we have a business where we do blah, blah, blah. Like we have an HVAC business, right? And we're doing a roll up.
Yeah.
Right. And we think these are great opportunities. And then the private equity firm can use your technology to validate the theory of the other company?
Sure.
Or?
Theoretically, you could, right? I like to say this is probably a starting point to build your thesis, right? Versus retroactively using it. And sure, like I showed you geospatially, when you plot data on a map, you can garner some insights from it that perhaps a manual analysis won't give you, right? So sure, you could use it as that. Like I said, let the data find the data and the user find the relevance, right? So depending on your context or your lens, you can extract insights and value from this, unlike manual analyses
Mhm.
might.
We've got a couple more minutes. Any questions on the data and the usage of it?
Sure, we had a
Ron
question.
Devari?
Hold on.
Thank you so much. Fantastic, good
Thank you.
job. Can this be used for B2B? Let's say a finance company wants to approach the same guys and see they can provide them financing of some sort.
Yep, you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something we should.
Yeah. No, would love to. If you scan this or, even after this event, obviously, we can exchange contact info, but yeah, right. Like, let's say you're a transaction advisor or M&A transaction advisor. This could theoretically be a great lead gen for you, right? So this, in all transparency, this was built really as a hobby, right? Because I was blending in my past investment banking experience with my current AI and big data company. So this was built as a hobby, right? So I never intended originally for this to be a commercial product to introduce, but through overtures of proactive interest, we thought, let's showcase it here and see if there's an opportunity. But folks seem to find value in my hobby. So I guess we'll be licensing this to customers. So
Last question.
sure.
So is this industry agnostic?
Yeah.
So life sciences, all good?
Yep. You give us a NAICS code or an industry code, we'll distill down the variables will adjust according to an industry because we use machine learning to map variables and propensity analyses to a particular industry. So
How would you map this to life sciences? Any thoughts?
probably for market potential, like depending on your on your end product or your research, there's a number of things. Like, let's say I'm pulling census data, we could look to see who has comorbidity, who has these diseases, et cetera. So there's a lot of consumer spending data that we could look at to find.
Are you
signal
pulling
predictions.
data from like PitchBook and Crunchbase?
Not yet, but they pull data from a lot of the sources that I'm pulling data from. So I went to the granular versus the end product. So
Right, I mean,
yeah. Sorry? Oh, like frame out versus using my, sure, yeah. Yeah, we're getting to that point, but the answer is yes, that's in our roadmap. So
like a
phase 2 will be
startup
that.
could use it for like a
Like-
market opportunity analysis?
Yeah. Like Crunchbase and PitchBook allows you to build a profile for for investors or acquirers to target you. That's where she's headed. So I get it. Yeah.
Any
Marty?
other questions? Closing comments?
I just wanted to say thanks so much for this opportunity. This was, like I shared, not meant to be a pitch, really just sharing some of my life's work with you all, but I'd love any feedback and or collaboration opportunities. So I invite you to do that by scanning this QR code or finding me after this event. But
Yeah,
Marty, thank you again.
there's a guy who might be a good guy for you to talk to, who I know. I'm gonna refer him to you. So, great job.